Okay, welcome to Beams and Ties. Beams and ties help us to see what we should feel as a musician. Beams and ties help us to see what we should feel as a musician. So that is to say, a musician has to feel the beat, right? But it's sometimes very hard to communicate that beat on the paper, all right? It can be confusing, but beams and ties help us to see what we should feel. And what we feel, there's two big differences in how we feel. Does anyone tell me? There are two huge ones. Whether the beat is simple or whether the beat is compound. Those are very different feelings, okay? Very different feelings. And we can only know that if we know how things are grouped together. And that's where beams and ties come into play. Okay. So let's take a look at these eighth notes over here on the top corner. There are 4 eighth notes, and here are 4 eighth notes on the second measure. But they tell us two very different things. And the fact that the left side is beamed and the right side isn't is a huge difference. It's a huge difference. It's monumental to how we should play it. Because these are beamed together, these 8 notes, it tells us that this is a group and this is a group. Okay? In this case, it tells us that these are not grouped and that they should be dealt with individually. That's a big difference. And I'm neglecting to say, that not only is simple and compound important, but duple, triple, and quadruple also are important to how we feel, okay? Now, so on the left side here, we're going to have a different time signature. Because there are only 2 things, we're going to be in 2, 4. 2, 4, but Mr. Narha, how's that possible? Well, these 2 things equal a quarter note, and these 2 things equal, a quarter note. Okay, we have 2 quarter notes here. Here, you might be able to say, but Mr. Narha, don't we have 2 quarter notes here? No. We actually have 4 eighth notes. That's the way the composer wants us to see this music, not in terms of 2 quarter notes like here, but in terms of 4 eighth notes like here. So there are 4 of something, and the beat note is an 8th note. That's really, really, really important. Now, for ties help us as well see the difference between what the meter is and what it should be. I'll give you an example. Here we see 2 groups of something on the left side, 2 groups. Here's 1 group, here's 2 groups. Here's 1 group, and here's the second group. Now, if you look at that, you could say, well, I have 2 groups, and this group is a dotted quarter, and this group is a dotted quarter. Super important. You could look at this on the right-hand side and say, okay, Mr. Narha, I see a dotted quarter there as well, and a dotted quarter. Here's a dotted quarter. That's true, that is a dotted quarter, but it is really different than this dotted quarter. This dotted quarter is broken up by a tie. It's broken up by a tie. And that's super important, that tie, and so are these beams. Really what we see here is not 2 groups, but we actually see 3 items. 1, 2, 3. Here's a quarter note, here's a quarter note, and here's a quarter note. Those are 3 items. So really in this one, it's 3 quarter notes, and in this one we have 2 dotted quarters. That's the way Orff would have written it, as compound duple, but we know that compound duple is 6/8. That is beams and ties.